Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, mammals and reptiles, amphibians, platypi, platypus, marsupials, and octopi, birds and fish gather round. Come one, come all. I'm here tonight to talk about something special near and dear to my heart. The rejects. Dun dun dun. Dearly beloved, we're gathered here today to get to this thing called life. A world for us of never-ending depression where you can always see the night, no matter if it's sunny or bright. So when you call up that shrink that tells you about some new pills and you know of life's thrills, ills, and daffodils, peace be still. Let's start this thing no one wants to talk about in this fantasy world, and that for us is so real. We all have a little reject in us. Some of us are rejected more than others. I've been rejected since I was about 9 years of age, so that's before some of you were born. I've been rejected internationally. I've been rejected nationally. I've been rejected locally. I've been rejected in Chinese. I've been rejected in Arabic. I've been rejected in Spanish and English. All right, for real. Again, one more time. Let's go through this, man. Let's go through this. It ain't really a joke, but you know what I'm saying. But so we're the ones that sometimes make others feel better about themselves. You know, we're the ones that those who have lived life that makes others think to themselves that they are glad they're not us. It's the ugly truth. Everyone talks about us on, but yet we somehow are not able to speak on it ourselves. Rejects come in many forms, shapes, and sizes. Only others know if you are truly rejected. When you tried to mingle, were you rejected? I come from a long line of rejects. My granddaddy was rejected for being ugly. My daddy was rejected for having a funny odor. My mother was rejected because... I'm just kidding. I ain't gonna say none of that. I'm just kidding, man, bullshitting. But let's get, stay on track. But, but it takes something in stride that is serious. I'll speak about those we reject, who we reject, and those of us that are rejected. I don't think that really came out right. Let me try to figure out another way to say that. I'm going to speak about those we reject and those of us that are rejected. And maybe on a different day, I'm going to speak about being accepted. But right now, this message is for the rejected. If you're ugly, step right up. I want to say, I'm ugly, and I'm proud. And if you're short, I want you to say, I want you to keep being who you are. Because no matter what they do, they're going to keep saying what they're going to say anyway. I want you to, if I had a big nose, or if you were just too skinny growing up, I mean skinny, to where the point people ask you, is everything all right with you? I want you to be proud. And I want you to, let's say, you didn't always act like a boy or the way they thought a boy should act, or you didn't always act the way they thought a girl should act. I want you to speak for those who are autistic. I want you to realize that whatever you are, whoever you are, you know what? You're all right with me. And I want you to come down. I want you to come down that aisle. I want you to be accepted. Because it's okay to be rejected. I want you to come on down that aisle and tell your story for the glory. Okay, now. Let's get to it. You can expect people that are treated abnormally to react. You can't expect people that are treated abnormally to react in a way that you would consider normal when they're reacting to abnormal situations. If you put someone in a situation that very few in this world are ever subject to experience, then you can expect that person to have a reaction or think or respond in a way to circumstances that someone else never experienced. Kind of losing track a little bit, but I hear myself. If you put someone in a situation that very few in this world are ever subject to experience, then you can't expect that person to have a reaction or think or respond in a way to circumstance that someone else never experienced. If someone was relentlessly teased and bullied for being extremely obese as a child, then you can't expect that person to laugh when everyone else is laughing at a fat joke. Sometimes also if someone is teased for their skin color a lot, then they in return come to not like others with their same skin color, and ironically may be the first to talk about someone else's skin color. Or someone who's short might not want to be around a whole bunch of other short people. This is the unpredictable nature that I am addressing. Listen closely to this next statement. If someone has one eye that is lazy or closed, or has a speech impediment, or one leg is longer than the other, or they were bald as a child, then that person is introduced to abnormal social situations that very well may not affect that person as much as it affects those of us that feel compelled to treat that person different. The discrimination fat people and short people and ugly people get goes beyond finding a mate or being perceived as attractive. It goes into family talking about you to your face and behind your back. It goes into getting served last at a restaurant. It goes into not getting invited to certain functions. It goes into people saying something about your brother. Oh, he's this, or he looks so this, or he's such a handsome this, and then they look at you and everything kind of goes silent for a little while. And then they find something to say because they realize it's awkward. Well, like I said, it goes into little children walking up to you and making fun of you or asking why you look so sad. It goes into getting paid less at your job. It goes into having a higher chance of going to prison or losing court cases. It goes into everyone. Can't really say everyone, but it goes into almost everyone accusing all your normal insecurities and strengths and faults into being based on a syndrome that they create for you. Doesn't matter if it's true or not. They will make it true in their mind, and their minds will not be changed. They are the ones that treat you different. If they touch you or throw food at you or make jokes about you to your face or stick their foot out to trip you while someone else videotapes it and you decide to retaliate, then you go to jail or you are suspended or fired. These are the circumstances that increase your likelihood to be considered guilty and condemned based on your appearance. Let's consider you were normal acting in social situations, and you are, what's normal acting? Well, that's another thing, but let's consider this to be somewhat what they will consider normal. Let's consider you were normal acting in social situations, and you are good at ignoring attacks against you, and you ignore people when they provoke you. Then they accept you because you allow them to discriminate against you by dehumanizing you publicly. Still, in these circumstances, they still make this all your fault, and everyone else accepts it as your fault while they laugh at you and you deny it or ignore it. They are the ones that socially cast you out, and yet they are the ones that say you have the problem and that you created the problem and it's all in your head. They are the ones that tell their children how to discriminate against you, and they are the ones that make cartoons and books and media of all forms that reinforce negative stereotypes about people that look like you. But yet they are not only free from blame, they are allowed to be the sole voice in saying you have the problem. If you acknowledge these things, they immediately dismiss your logic and say that you see things that way as a part of the syndrome that they diagnosed you with, and you are only confirming your insecurity and mental problems. If you never talk about this discrimination, then you will still not be free from the experience. This is one of the weirdest cases of ignorance that the vast majority of people in the U.S. and Europe do not acknowledge. What is this case? The case is the perpetrator and instigator and culprit of the negative actions, convincing the world that they are innocent and that the victim is to blame for others' negative actions. Sheep in wolf's clothing. So you see people walking on sidewalks and not giving space to a short person and expecting that shorter person to move out the way. Probably subliminally, or probably not subliminally, probably you never even realize it. You hear people talk about overweight people eating too much and how awful it would be to be that size. You see guys and women call short men the many names called. You see the rejection. You see corporate bullying and hiring practices where short men are teased in board meetings by colleagues and bosses and paid less statistically. You see the abundance of attractive people in Fortune 500 companies, and you see ugly people in the minority in those companies. Maybe some feel there is nothing that can be done, and therefore they say and do nothing to try to change these discriminations because there's nothing that can be done. And they don't want to be looked at as what you're looking at me as, probably being someone who keeps saying something about short. I wonder if he's short. Maybe he's ugly. Or maybe his leg is longer than the other. I'll let you keep on guessing. But I'm trying to touch on things that people don't really touch on too much. Because they're not allowed to speak about it. Or nobody cares about it. But I'm seeing comedians come out and they're starting to speak more about it, about the ugly people. And so that's kind of interesting and ironic that, you would think comedians would be looking for material, but ironically, they're kind of speaking out in different ways. I'll leave that up to the comedians. I'm not really one. So, maybe some feel that there's nothing they can do. But however, there was a time dehumanizing blacks was popular and accepted behavior. That changed. I'm going on a tangent for a second. You used to see black women in zoo cages. Black children were fed to alligators. Black people's skin was turned into wallets, Nat Turner, and our hair turned to shoestrings. You've seen our skin turn to glue, or you've definitely read and seen the monkey comparisons for evolution. You've seen this taught in every nation of the world that was colonized by Europeans. You've seen the term picnics used to define a time when blacks were to be hung from trees while children watched and parents ate food while gathering around and collecting and dancing and singing. We've seen ourselves thrown off ships so much that sharks began to follow the ships due to that many Africans not making the transatlantic voyage, and they were looking for food and learned to put the two together, that every time these ships are around, we get to eat black meat. We've seen how a people can be brainwashed to believe by themselves and others that they are not as attractive as others, bleaching their skin, changing our hair. And then on the other end, you got people, suntan lotion, going in the sun and putting on suntan lotion. And if you ever looked at that on the computer, it's actually making you black. But there was a time those things were normal. There was a time making fun of overweight, obese women was normalized. That has changed. Race nor obesity, neither has been erased, but the discrimination has been acknowledged, and those guilty of perpetrating that behavior are no longer looked at as innocent. Humans can change when enough evidence, education, and incentive is brought to their attention that allows them to see and acknowledge our behavior as bad, especially when it is no longer considered acceptable and gets a laugh. However, the ugly have to stand. The short and fat have to stand, and they must do so in each group without joining the others. The short must stand and make their voice known separate from the ugly, and the ugly must also do so separate from the overweight, obese. This is part of the problem. No one wants to be that spokesperson. Who wants to stand up and say, on behalf of the my leg isn't the same size as the other leg delegation, I have something to say. I too have a dream. You know what I mean? Maybe you don't. It's an ugly thing. It's a rejected thing. The humility is too threatening and overwhelming. Unlike race, where you can congregate with your group, family, friends, partner, children, continent, or race, when you're a 5'2" man or obese woman or an extremely ugly individual, you're often alone. In a university school of 15,000 people, there are probably only 2 women that are over 400 pounds, or men over 400 pounds. There's probably only 2 men that are 5'3" and below at a school of 15,000 people. At a top-notch law firm or corporation that employs 5,000 people or more in one building, you'll probably only see about 5 women that weigh over maybe 300 pounds. Uniting those like you is extremely difficult when there are almost none like you that you see around. And then the 1 or 2 like you might just not like you, or they might be in denial or unwilling to join the fight because they see it as unnecessary. Those that fit this description want to be everything but what others have defined them as. And therefore, they often reject defending or speaking out against being discriminated against for being ugly, obese, short, or whatever feature or characteristic renders the majority to want to reject them. So these are the extreme challenges ugly, short, or extremely obese people face. No one wants to be the face of those movements. Recruiting is difficult. Hear ye, hear ye. I hereby start the official Baghead crew. Due to public shaming, though I'm gonna stop that voice, man. But due to public shaming, I think those who are not willing to let their face be seen, but are willing to fight the war of these types of discrimination, can wear a bag over your head. Really? A bag over my head? But, come on. Think about it. What would that say? That to fight this type of discrimination, people had to wear bags over their head. I'm just a face without a card. You ain't gotta accept me. Fuck you. Fuck you twice. Fuck you 3 times. The letter after E and the letter after T. Well, anoint me. Elect me, rejects. Rejects unite. All of you who aren't accepted, I'll be your Huckleberry. This is part 1. I'll return to this. Only rejects allowed.